Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline podcast, brought to you by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST5 provides streamlined access to behavioral and mental health services, as well as crisis resources for Michigan's Frontline 5 workers and their families. This includes all professional, part-time, and volunteer firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, corrections officers, and 911 dispatchers in Michigan and their immediate family members. First responders and mental health experts collaboratively created FST5 to provide 24/7 live support, effective resources, and cutting-edge services to prevent and alleviate PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. Need help now? If you are a frontline worker in Michigan or an immediate family member experiencing any crisis, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, finances, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG or go to fst5.org for more information. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of the hosts of the Minds on the Frontline podcast, and I'm a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. Minds on the Frontline is co-hosted by Mike Mattern, who is also a professional firefighter and paramedic. In addition, Mike is a peer support team member for his fire department and the Frontline Strong Together 5 program, as well as the chair of the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union Behavioral Health Committee and a board member of the Michigan Crisis Response Association. Mike has training and experience with frontline worker mental and behavioral health. On the other hand, I do not. My role is to produce the show, whereas Mike is our resident subject matter expert. Together, we hope to inform, educate, and entertain frontline workers, their families, and the general public regarding the realities of frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. 911 dispatchers occupy a unique and critical role in our emergency response systems. Tasked with handling emergency calls for fire, EMS, and police services, these professionals are the unseen first responders, the first point of contact during some of the most harrowing moments in people's lives. Yet, despite their pivotal role, the emotional and psychological toll they bear is often overlooked. One of the most profound challenges dispatchers face is the nature of their interactions. Unlike field providers who arrive on scene, dispatchers engage solely on the phone. They receive urgent, often life-threatening calls filled with fear, panic, or distress, and must quickly gather information, provide immediate guidance, and dispatch the necessary services. Their job requires a high level of composure, quick thinking, and emotional resilience. However, what makes their role particularly strenuous is the absence of closure. In most circumstances, dispatchers are only privy to the initial call for help. They rarely learn the outcomes of the situations they handle. Too often, they are left to wonder what happened to the individuals they assisted, whether help arrived in time or if the situation was resolved. This constant exposure to crisis, combined with the lack of resolution, can lead to significant emotional and psychological stress. Additionally, the personal connections that dispatchers form with their colleagues in the field add another layer of emotional complexity to their role. It's not uncommon for dispatchers to personally know the police officers, firefighters, and EMS personnel that they send into potentially dangerous situations. Hearing a familiar voice over the radio calling, "Shots fired!" or issuing a mayday because they are in imminent danger heightens the stress exponentially. Dispatchers must maintain composure and professionalism while their friends and colleagues face life-threatening situations, making their role not only a job, but a profound emotional commitment to their community and peers. The job of a 911 dispatcher is not just about answering calls. It's about managing crisis situations from a distance, providing a calm and authoritative presence on the phone, and then often living with unresolved concerns and unanswered questions. This continuous cycle can be incredibly demanding, highlighting the need for robust support systems to help dispatchers manage the stress and emotional toll of their work. By understanding and acknowledging the complex challenges faced by 911 dispatchers, we can better appreciate the essential service they provide and the profound resilience they exhibit daily. In today's episode, we are excited to welcome Mariah Alasadi, a police and fire dispatcher from the city of Warren, Michigan. Despite having only 6 years on the job, Mariah exemplifies the highest standards of professionalism, maintaining a positive attitude and unwavering dedication to serving her community. The city of Warren, the third largest city in Michigan, relies on its 911 dispatch center to handle an incredible 100,000 calls for service annually. During any given shift, Mariah and each member of her small team, which consists of a minimum of just 3 dispatchers, may individually answer between 200 to 500 calls daily. These range from urgent 911 emergencies involving fire, EMS, and police to non-emergency requests for service, making their role crucial yet immensely challenging. Mariah's ability to maintain a healthy balance despite the intense demands of her role is not just commendable, but essential. During our conversation, we will delve into the support systems and resources that aid dispatchers like Mariah in managing the emotional and mental toll of their duties. By gaining insights into Mariah's experiences and the broader context of dispatcher challenges, we aim to foster greater appreciation and support for these vital yet often overlooked frontline workers. To assist us in this conversation, we welcome Scott Taylor, a recently retired police officer and peer support team member from the city of Warren, Michigan. Scott is also a peer support team member for the FST5 program and the State of Michigan Officer Wellness Liaison to the National Fraternal Order of Police, or the FOP. In addition, we are excited to introduce a new segment to our podcast that aims to deepen the understanding of our discussions. At the end of the interview, a clinician and a peer support team member will reflect on the conversation, providing insights and emphasizing key points that resonated with them. This innovative approach is designed to offer a more comprehensive analysis of the topics covered and ensure that our listeners can engage with and benefit from the nuances of these important conversations. In this episode, the reflection segment features Manisha Leary, a clinical psychotherapist and the FST5 program manager. Joining her is Christy Burris, a retired dispatcher with 25 years of service and a peer support team member of the FST5 program. Their combined experiences and perspectives are expected to enrich the conversation, offering valuable takeaways and deepening the impact of what you've heard today. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds of the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Hello, how are we this morning?
I'm good, how are you?
Very good.
Excellent, thank you.
Perfect. Scott, kick us off. Who are you? What do you do?
My name is Scott Taylor. I'm a 27-year veteran in law enforcement, currently with Frontline Strong Together. I'm involved with the State of Michigan FOP and the City of Warren FOP. I'm the Officer Wellness Liaison to the National FOP, and we're here to have some fun today.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
So you brought a friend along with you today.
I brought a very good friend along.
In my opinion, one of the most underrated sections of the FST5 categories is our dispatchers. I would say they're probably the most underappreciated asset in all of this. As Sheriff Jerry Clayton said in the very seat, our dispatchers are the central nervous system of getting help to you.
Yeah.
You know, it receives signals that something needs to happen, and then it sends another signal to make it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So you're kind of here to walk us through that world.
Okay.
But before we get in there, who are you? What do you do, and where do you do it?
I am Mariah Alasadi. I am a 911 dispatcher for Warren. I dispatch police, fire, and medical.
Right on. So you're not our first dispatcher to be on it, but you might be the 6 years on the job, maybe
newest.
The biggest rookie, the newest.
Yeah, I would say the newest.
Yeah, the least seasoned. And that's why you're really here today. You know, you come from a generation that we are hoping appreciates emotional, mental stability and coping skills and resiliency, right? It seems so much easier on your generation because it's not stigmatized like it once was.
Right. Absolutely.
And you're less than 10 years on the job working at a very busy department. You know, Warren goes on lots of calls. It's one of the biggest cities in Michigan. I think it's one of the more populated.
Yeah, we're the third biggest on the way to the second. We handle close to 100,000 calls for service a year.
100,000 calls for service, and there's how many of you in the dispatch center?
Minimum is 3. So on my shift, more times than not.
There's no
3 of
zero
us.
behind that. That's just 3.
3.
Okay.
Yeah. So 3 of us, 2 call takers, and on a 12-hour shift, we can take anywhere from 200 to 600 or 500 calls normally.
Oh, that's it?
Between 2 people.
Okay.
And
And they don't schedule those, so it's not like, hey, I'm taking a lunch break. Recently, obviously, I had surgery.
Yeah.
And I called the office because I had a question, and there was a message at a medical facility that said, hey, we're out to lunch. And I literally LOL'd because I was like, that's funny.
Yeah.
You guys could do that?
Right. Snow day.
Yeah.
I want a snow
Yeah.
day. I want a snow day.
Yeah.
We have it to where we have set lunches, which is awesome. So no matter what, in a 12-hour shift, we have to have an hour lunch, which I'm thankful for. Just kind of like decompress. And obviously we sit at our desk and we can snack throughout the day if we get the time. But that hour break is a necessity.
Can you see the outside?
We can. We
Okay.
can. I've heard other dispatchers that are not so lucky. So
Every dispatch center that I've been involved with, I've worked at 2 fire departments, and I worked at a very young age, worked at a private EMS agency, and they were all
in the basement?
mushroom growing places,
Yep.
very
Yeah.
dark,
Closets,
damp.
a lot of
Yeah.
closets.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we thankfully we have big bright windows or
Good.
big windows.
Yeah. We are
And-
sun worshipping species.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yeah. Vitamin D for sure.
So you're here to kind of give us a little bit more perspective on that perception versus reality. So let's keep going. You kind of gave us the overview-ish
Right.
of what a dispatcher does. You go there, you answer way too many calls. You don't have a lot of people there.
Right.
I'm sure there's a hiring shortage for dispatchers like everybody else. It's hard to get anybody in there. I know we deal with that where I work. Let's start with, how are 911 dispatchers trained typically in the United States? Because we watch a lot of TV.
Mm-hmm.
And people have a lot of perceptions on even what firefighters do. And firefighters get out. They see us. They can actually watch us do what we do in real life. Nobody ever sees what you do.
Right.
So it's all just assumed. So let's start off with the training. What does a dispatcher go through?
You go through modules. So they send you off into training. You get hired on with little to no training. They kind of set you in the room, give you like a kind of an overview of, hey, look at how busy it can be in the room. Kind of just look at all the 8 screens in front of you, the 3 keyboards, the phone's ringing, and the radio's going at all the time. So kind of they just let you observe for a little bit, and then they send you through courses. But there is no training to handle that stress. It's kind of just like go in, see what it's like, and roll with it.
Toss you into the deep end.
Yeah, basically.
See, sink or swim.
Yeah, basically.
So they're looking for a specific set of skills that you can grasp, and saying that we can adapt those skills to dispatching, essentially.
Absolutely.
Multitasking with noise screaming in the back. It sounds like what my wife does. We have 2 young children, and she is a stay-at-home mom, which is probably one of the only things harder
Oh, for sure.
than
Can
answering
imagine.
500 calls a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot going on all at the same time. They're making sure you can handle that. And then from there, it seems like they can train you.
Yeah. So, yeah, basically, you laid it out pretty good. It's more of like, kind of like a scare tactic. Like you sit in there for a couple of hours.
Right.
Are you stressed out without even having to take a call? Are you stressed out from just listening to the calls or listening to the chatter from the radios? Kind of get a good vibe from, like a good reading off of somebody of just setting them in there for a couple of hours.
And we're not even talking about a panicking person.
Right.
We're just talking about 3 phone lines going off at the same time.
Right.
I have too many emails in my inbox. I get nervous.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, it's definitely not something that you're trained for, though. It's training to learn how to dispatch is kind of done in-house for us in the city. So, like I said, observing is probably the biggest thing to kind of learn how to dispatch.
So would you say that's typical for dispatchers across the U.S., or at least in Michigan?
I wouldn't say typical. I think our department, the Warren way, I think that's different from other departments. I know other departments send them through like a dispatch academy type of thing.
Sure.
And we did test that out. And I think that they're going to try to get us back into the hiring process and get the new dispatchers to go to an academy.
Okay.
I don't think that everywhere in the state of Michigan does it that way.
It's like everything else with fire academy, police academy. They send the dispatcher and they give you the basic skills, and then you're on the job, right? So you come out, you have your 1-year probation period. You learn how to be a firefighter. You learn how to be a cop. The academy just gives you the tools to do it, and you don't learn that till you're out on the street doing it, and you have veteran officers, veteran firefighters training you. Same thing with dispatch. And it's about a year-long program, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Training is about anywhere from 5 to 6 months, depending on how quick you can push through the phases. And then you're on a year probation period.
And these are more skill objectives. These are cognitive and physical objectives. None of these have anything to do with your emotional appreciation for anything or training for the actual stress of a panic. It's really just when you receive this information, do this and respond to appropriate resources.
Correct.
So it's very objective that way,
Correct.
which is super necessary. I'm not trying to minimize that.
No, absolutely.
That's kind of the point of why you're there.
Right.
But at the same time, currently, and I'm sure like all the other FST5, we're all scrambling to figure out how to get this in the initial education, but currently it's just not really there.
Right.
You know, you guys get all your initial training, you guys get the dispatch training, you go to the academies, you get, you follow your mentors throughout the process. And you had talked about that you don't really get any training with how to deal with the emotional, mental stress that comes along with that. So what is it, how do you deal with it personally? And how is it in the dispatch realm that you guys do that now?
For myself personally, my stress, you're not taught how to handle stress. And even like I started at a younger age. So it's kind of something that you teach yourself along the further along you come in dispatch. For myself, I really rely on my coworkers. I have a good rapport with my coworkers, kind of just talk about situations. We have peer support groups in the city we can rely on as well if need be. But I keep myself busy with things that make me happy. I go to the gym. I spend time with my family and my dogs. And
now, is that something you had ahead of time, or is that something that you learned through dispatch and through those dispatchers up in the dispatch center? Like, that's how we deal with it? Or did you come in and still have some of those old school dispatchers? Like, we all came in through the fire service, police service, where we had the old school salties,
Cigarettes.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey,
I can still smell cigarettes.
We're going to the bar. We're going to drink it away. If you don't talk about it, that kind of stuff. I mean, is that something that you're seeing now that's kind of going more by the wayside? Or, I mean, how did you come up with those coping mechanisms that you have now?
Depending on who you speak with. I mean, for us, I'm the younger generation of a dispatcher in the city, so it's definitely not that way anymore. I think that it's more talked about. I think that handling our stress is, we chit-chat about it all the time, and depending on who you're on the shift with, you gain a rapport with them. For myself, it was always my family and the gym and stuff like that has always been a part of what I do, but I kind of took it for granted. I feel like now it's something that I rely on. It's not something that I take for granted anymore. It's something that it was there already, and I use it as a resource now.
Well, it's probably fair to say that prior to getting into this profession, you didn't have the stress level that you have now.
Absolutely not.
So you didn't need to do those things to relieve stress because you didn't have that.
Absolutely.
You talked about you had peer support within the city. What other kind of resources do you as dispatchers have for those, tough calls where, you have something where you have a screaming mom on the other end of the phone, or, those high stress, real traumatic calls? What kind of resources do the dispatchers have right now that they can use for those processes?
Peer support at the department. I don't think that we rely on the department as much as what you do in your personal life. I think, like, for myself personally, I'll go to therapy. If there's something bad, I'll set myself an appointment, the day after or something like that. I think that we kind of handle things individually and to get over things. Like if you deal with that screaming mom on the phone, I think that it differs per person.
Okay.
So again, we're trying to break down those perceptions versus realities, and you're really making things clear, right? And one of the biggest things that, the chronic fatigue of too much, we end up getting a compassion fatigue, and we start to compartmentalize things, right? And so being a dispatcher, task after task after task, who receives an emergency call and never gets to hear the rest of the story. You only get to hear the thick of the plot.
Right.
And who knows what happened from there, because it's not like you can follow up. You're busy on the next couple of 100 calls that day. So in your opinion, how do you handle the compartmentalizing of that, or managing that, coping with that in a 8 to 12 hour shift?
12-hour shift.
And how do you think it's manifesting on the people around you as well?
I think that you have to remember why you do the job in the first place. I think that that's kind of what helps me push through and not kind of hold on to those things that you're dealing with, the stressors. And at the end of the day, obviously, like, you go home, you decompress, and you're on to the next day.
It just depends on how you do that, right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
where we're at. Okay.
I think for myself, like, decompressing and like going home to a silent house and spending the time alone for a little bit just to kind of, and I read and stuff like that, helps me.
She just hit it there. We've brought up this term before.
Re-entry.
Re-entry. Now, she's not re-entering into what we've talked to other people in the past. Like I walk into a house full of, a family.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's quiet. I would love it if it were. Right? And I'm sure you're wearing cans all day on your head. You're listening to phone calls all day. That silence has to be glorious.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that reentry time, I think you're taking a really good advantage of it, whether you know it or not. Like you're like, nope, I need this.
Absolutely.
And that's a super emotionally mature thing instead of going to the bar.
I mean, hit or miss. We do it every
Well,
day.
no, you always go for drinks with people after work sometimes, but it's like, it's certainly not the everyday thing.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're saying.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
You're choosing some healthy coping skills after a long day's work. With so many people listening, no matter what they do, can understand that, right? Especially if you deal with something you have to listen to people talk all day.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That reentry time coming home, you're switching off work you and you're turning into personal you.
Yeah.
And then that, I think that's where we've talked about it a lot on different podcasts here. That reentry time is what sets the rest of your day up. So you come home, you don't have that reentry time, the rest of your day is a shit show.
Yeah.
Everything bothers you, you get upset, you get angry, and it sets up the rest of the day. If you can have those 15, 20 minutes of just silence and you're pulling your stuff together and you're switching over from I'm on alert, I'm high stressed, I'm at work to, okay, now the biggest thing I got to worry about today is get a tank of gas and some groceries. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's a big difference between I'm listening to screaming mom on the phone, her baby's not breathing. You don't just go in and go, oh, well, I need to go get gas. I need milk. I need that reentry time. That sets your day, the rest of your day up for everything. Absolutely. And it's golden.
And to follow up on that, also, you have the your social circle is not the same people you work with.
Exactly.
It's very important to have civilian friendships and relationships.
Absolutely.
So you're not talking about work 24/7.
Absolutely.
That's a big product.
Yes. There's some days I would just like to talk about stupid shit with my friends. Because it's just one of those things. I'm not talking about work. I'm not dealing with work. That's Mike. That's not who I am at work. You know what I mean? So you hit the nail on the head. Those friends outside of whatever job you're doing are priceless.
There'll be times when you're on a 2 or 3 days off and you the phone rings and it's like, oh, that's somebody I know from work. I'm not going to answer that until Monday because I don't need to talk to you this week.
Yes.
It's important to have that, to have the differential, be able to differentiate the two social classes.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you recognize a difference in the people around you that probably have good coping skills when they leave versus the people that don't?
Absolutely.
And explain those differences. And we're not trying to call people out, but point objectively at some of the things that you think are different. Bottom line, what I'm asking is, are those people happier that have good coping skills?
Absolutely. I mean, somebody that makes work their whole entire life, even outside of work, you notice.
Even with just 6 years on the job, and to us, I got 20.
Absolutely.
This guy's got like 804.
Right.
He's right behind me.
Right.
You're like, oh yeah, you can see it, right? You're seeing us old
almost
guys.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Almost immediately.
The problem with the people that don't have the good coping skills, when you're working in that small environment, that room, it turns that atmosphere into toxic. It's toxic.
100%.
It ruins your whole day because you want to have a good day. You want to be polite and be happy, and this person's just dragging on negativity. Brings negativity.
Well, you're relying on each other. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is like if we're all working in the same room together, you at least we get to go out into the public and the scene changes.
Yeah.
Right.
You guys are stuck in dispatch and there's
you're literally tethered to your desk.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned it before, that lack of closure on these incidents is huge for these guys. I mean, you get to see the fire put out. I get to see handcuffs on guys. And these guys have no idea what happened because they're going to the next call.
Yeah.
And we got the time to follow up with the crew that was there. That's what we do. We bullshit about it the whole time. We figure it out. Oh, isn't that great? We had the save, or oh, the bad guy got caught. Whatever it is.
Exactly.
We go through that whole thing. We talk.
Everyone's
you don't have time to talk.
Right. I will say we do make sure that we make time for that. If a call is really bothering us and we need to know if that baby made it or something of that sort, we definitely it's gotten better since I first started, for sure, to where now, like, if I need some sort of closure, I can shoot a text message to the officer and say, or a message via, our computer system and ask what happened, get closure from it, or call the fire department and ask them what happened. I think that it's slowly getting better as far as we don't get it every single time, but we have the option that if that call is bothering you so badly that you really need to know, we absolutely can. It might be 6 hours later, but you will get the answer.
Yeah,
that you
even
want.
if it's the end of your shift.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Absolutely.
almost like if calls meet a certain criteria, and this is just pipe dream, if calls met a certain criteria, an automatic follow-up would be emailed to you at the end of your shift.
If only.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, I realize the problems with that, but I also like it'd be nice to end my shift in a magical world where I control everything in my little simulation, that you're like, okay, let me print this out. Okay, everybody lived, had a good day.
Absolutely.
You know, one of those
if
things.
Only.
Most agencies are smaller in nature, and even we're from a big agency, we're still small.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, is it fair to say that when there's an officer on the radio, you probably know by voice most of the department? You know who's who?
Absolutely.
So when you're on a call or with officers on, let's say he's fighting with someone, you could tell that urgency or, you know, whatever. How does that affect you? Because all you're doing is trying to direct people. And
right.
you know that this guy may be getting it, you know, is getting it handed to him.
Absolutely.
How does that affect you? I mean, how emotionally does that affect you that this may be, so you and I have been friends a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm calling for help. I'm like, I need help now, or shots fired. And what does that do to your
walk
blood
us through the
pressure?
physical sensations and mental
Absolutely.
anguish.
You kind of go into like fight mode. Like you turn into like, you know, put a straight face on, and anxiety, of
Game
course,
time.
that's the first thing. But yes, game time is the first thing and you don't even give yourself time to think about it. Like, oh, Scott's calling for help, I'm gonna get help there. But anxiety, you're tense, your adrenaline's pumping, just like
that's what I'm looking for.
yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. But then you get that adrenaline dump after as well. So I mean, I've had that instance where I've become friends with officers outside of work, and they go out for a barking dog complaint, and they get out there and they call shots fired, and it's a one man unit. So he goes out there and I'm like, you know, what do I do? But you don't have time to sit there and give yourself 60 seconds to say, oh, what do I do? What should I do? It is game time, you know, get some help out there, you know, figure out what's going on and make sure that he's safe. He's got a family to go home to.
Yeah. And I think especially if you know certain officers that don't call for help normally. And when,
Right.
when that guy calls for help,
Yes.
you know that it's a pretty emotional time.
Something good. Yeah, absolutely.
So you get a huge cortisol dump.
Mm-hmm.
So your body's flooding with the worst hormones, not all the good ones. It's
Right.
not like you got a bunch of endorphins kicking in. And then you just got to go through it. And that really pays homage to the fact that you probably go through a lot of if this, then that training.
Absolutely.
Because then you could just go into mode. And I like that you said fight mode. You didn't say fight or flight. You said fight.
Fight. Yeah, there's
Right.
no fight or flight mode.
That's
There's
the
no-
difference,
Yeah,
is what we look for in our Frontline Strong. It's just the thought of, no. We're staying here.
absolutely.
We stay in the pocket. The best way to help is to continue what I'm doing with a clear head,
Right.
no matter how bad I feel.
Right.
And then, like you said, once it's done, it's like,
Yeah, you can finally take a breath almost.
This part of our audience is just as important as the guys fighting the fires.
Absolutely.
The guy, I mean, it's
100%.
just as important. They don't get that recognition a lot.
And they should, because they're watching us.
Oh,
When we're out there,
absolutely.
we're watching each other, but from the further global view, they're watching us. They're bringing us what we need to do our jobs, and they are 100% just as important and integral in this whole system as anybody else.
But it's important that the rest of us recognize that, not just the public, because you're not just giving me the parking complaints and I'm going, oh, she did it again. God, I hate her.
Yeah.
We need to realize, and I think that's a big problem in all of us, especially in our department, that those lazy dispatchers aren't doing nothing, which is just ridiculous.
I think that the precedence of dispatch has, throughout the years, it was bad for a long period of time. I mean, people that don't have good coping skills kind of ruin that for us new dispatchers. So I think with, me being almost 6 years on the job, I think that the new people that come in and have that mindset of like, we want a good work environment. We want to be friendly with people. We want to make sure that, you don't want a toxic work environment. And that goes for the firemen, that goes for the police department. The police officers. Rapport is a big deal. Like you said, if I'm sending you to every parking complaint or every barking dog complaint, we don't want that. We don't want it to be, we're like, oh, this dispatcher's on the radio again today. It's like, we want to have that rapport of, if you need something, you let me know and I'll make sure that I get it done, and I'll get it done fast and correctly. It's a struggle. But we are definitely making way, I think, but it can only get better.
You basically described all of the Frontline Strong Fives. You could have taken out dispatcher, put in cop.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We talk about some of your training and responsibilities. So let's just say I'm sent to a call on a domestic, all right? And besides you just saying, get my call sign, sending me out there, what are some of the other things you do as far as looking up histories, looking up people? You're not just sending us there without follow-up information, correct?
Absolutely.
So your job is not just to go there.
Right. Give us some perspective, because
Yes.
again,
Like, what do you do on a call like that? You're going to anything, barking dog, domestic, man with a gun. What do you do to help give information to the officers? What is part of your job?
You look into the address. So you write up that run for the officers. You're looking at, like you said, previous incidents that took place at that address. You're looking at what we call loc notes. So any type of like red flag for this address, the person that lives there likes to fight with officers or not police friendly. That puts my officers in harm's way if I don't let them know that they, it might be a different shift that handled that. So we run people, they go out to a domestic, we're running the issue there that they're going out for, make sure there's no warrants, make sure that they don't have any sort of
firearms history, violent
anything.
history.
Yeah.
You're going back to the memory database of
Right.
all things that occurred in and around that thing.
Right.
To give them the best intel they need to not get hurt.
Right.
Or
And
to
then-
help the people that are.
Right, and while you're doing that, you also have 3 or 4 more calls coming in
Absolutely.
that you've got to field.
Or
Right.
you have a couple more officers calling out on a traffic stop or asking for a wrecker or something of that
Right.
sort. So it's not like our main focus is just that one thing. We get that call, we're going to dispatch this one unit to. Our mind and our hands are busy doing multiple other things.
You told me that you were my private dispatcher. You mean there's other people working that you got
That's
to
crazy.
deal with? I did
It's
not know
crazy,
that.
I know.
did not know
She's
that.
not just the voice in your head.
Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of officers think that though, and they'll say, "Where's how long until?"
Dispatch for one?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we were doing multiple things, like you said, taking calls, and it kind of goes into like you're in autopilot. Like it's our norm to make sure we're running somebody for guns, for warrants, for anything, for their safety. Taking another call or
Well, part of the gig for you and the motivation, like you said before, you go into a fight mode.
right.
All right, so what have we done here before? All right, we've been here 6 times in the last month. This one here, it's for a 25-year-old male that we did it. Got it. Now you got to relay all that information.
Right.
The phones are ringing behind you. There's only 3 of you in the room. One hasn't had lunch today.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's all this going on. So it's really easy for me now as a professional firefighter paramedic who deals with a lot of dispatch to go, yeah, I could understand now why she seemed confused or didn't understand or whoever's going on the other line or didn't give me my information right away.
Which is so nice for you to understand that. But again, there's a huge disconnect within the departments for everyone.
Agreed. And I hope we're going to kind of bring those walls down a little bit, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
So I think we make it clear that, fire, EMS, police, let's give our dispatchers a minute here. They're dealing with it. But so leave us with some big sweeping things that everybody in the Frontline Strong community that operates with dispatch, like me and Mike and our buddy Scott over there, what do we need to understand, as well as the rest of the general community? What are the big picture things that you can help us all appreciate about dispatchers in the United States?
Be patient with us. Understand that we're working with a little bit of, we're short-staffed just like every other frontline, any department. Understand that we are doing our best. We are not just kicking it under the rug and acting like what your needs are not a necessity to us, or your needs are not important to us. We're doing what we can with what we have.
That's some great words. Yeah, I think we just need to appreciate the fact that you've always been doing that at dispatchers, and we just need to be a little more patient.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For us and the public. we need to, as first responders, we need to realize that you guys are, you're helping, you're doing our job.
Yeah. And maybe a little forgiveness from you guys real quick, because it's easy for me to say this now sitting here with you and a couple other dispatchers I've had conversations with, to take the time to appreciate. But I'm as guilty as everybody else. MF and dispatch. They're so stupid. They can't send the right truck to nothing, right? But at the end of the day, if I can only juggle 3 balls. I can juggle. But you throw a 4th one,
impressive.
I'm done. Well, not right now.
Well, not right now. He's got a busted wing.
I would like to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, it's the point. It's like I can handle that. Like I'm okay. I can any more than that, the system breaks down.
Absolutely.
Right. So once in a while, you're gonna get, the wrong truck to the whatever. It's gonna happen.
Right.
And I'll say doing this and talking to dispatchers on this podcast, that's one thing that I've picked up and I've been more cognizant of it, is giving the dispatchers a little more grace than I would before doing it. You know what I mean? We don't get to, like, I don't know about you, but when I got hired, we never went into dispatch and saw what dispatch did. And so you just kind of sat there and, what are they doing up there? You know what I mean? It's like, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Like, what are they doing? What's the man behind the curtain
I don't know
doing?
your face.
Absolutely.
Yes. There's a decade where I'm like, Becky's on.
Yep.
I've never met Becky.
100%.
I don't even know her name's Becky. That's that voice.
It's her name to you. Is Becky.
Yes.
That's Becky. There's Steve. There's Johnny. All that stuff.
We're kind of wrapping it up a little bit here. So my question to you is, what is something that you would say to a brand new dispatcher that you've learned? Like right now, you're going to talk to the new dispatcher coming in, what kind of words of wisdom would you pass on to them? Like, if you talk to yourself on your first day of work, what have you learned now that you would tell them, like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what I learned. What kind of words of wisdom do you have for those dispatchers that are coming in?
You don't know what you're walking into until you get in there, but you have to make sure that you keep a strong mindset. Keep yourself busy with other things than just the job. And when you leave the job there. Don't take things home with you. Find good ways, good coping skills. Stay positive with things. I think that was never really brought to my attention. It was just kind of like dispatch is doom and gloom. Be aware, be ready, that's that. And you don't want that persona in dispatch. So kind of just come in there with a good attitude. You're going to make the day how you want it. That's all you really can do. I mean, you're the only one that can choose how your day goes.
Yeah, you could be talking to anybody right now. Could be any human could take that advice.
Right.
And I think with dispatch specifically, I think that like the job itself, it's rewarding. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's draining and stressful, but it genuinely is rewarding. At the end of the day, I know that my job, if I wasn't at my job, you guys wouldn't have, we're a necessity.
It's a system.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's a system.
It's a 911 system.
Yeah. And for the record, she is a training officer. She does train new dispatchers.
I do.
Cool.
Good.
So you get the perspective of kind of bringing. So I'm glad to hear that it's not only somebody who's capable of doing the job, but is also like, yo, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk.
Right.
Just chill.
Right.
Chill. We're all gonna get through this together.
Absolutely.
Okay. So as a younger dispatcher who's getting seasoned, right? You gotten the calls on, but you're armed with good coping skills. Again, you come from a generation where the stigma is dissolving, so it's cool to be like, I need a minute. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Go give her a minute, right? So luckily, in conjunction with that, you're one of the last generations that, doesn't have direct access to care, and now it's available. So
Right.
FST5 and other programs like it are designed to help people like you when you need it or your immediate family members. How do you think FST5 is going to benefit your coworkers and future dispatchers?
I think just making it, like you said, not having that stigma, making it a well-known thing, and talking about it, and making sure that our peer support groups are maybe reaching out even and not waiting for us dispatchers or, officers, firemen to come and say, hey, I need, just kind of be there already and kind of reach out with a helping hand. I think that's nothing but going to be helpful. I mean, that's being proactive is better than being reactive. And I think that if they continue to do that, I think that it's going to dissolve even faster or completely.
Right. And now it's like, well, my shoulder hurts. Okay, go get it fixed.
Right.
My heart hurts. Go get it fixed. Like it's in the same category.
Yeah.
It's going to limit my ability to be a frontline effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a resource that's, we've talked about it, way overdue. Unfortunately, like dispatch was forgotten by us.
Mm-hmm.
They're even more forgotten when they talk about like PTSD, those types of things, whereas they think we get it from the stuff that we see, the stuff that we do, but now we have a program that includes them. There's not many programs out there for first responders that include dispatch. Dispatch is kind of the forgotten first responder. Yeah. And so it's nice to see with Frontline that we're putting it to the forefront of the mental health, behavioral health realm. Like, hey, you're not forgotten. You're one of us. We look at you on the same level plane as everyone else. And I think that's one resource, especially for dispatch, that they didn't have, a long time ago, whereas we all had peer support teams, SISM teams, these types of stuff. But you're talking about, most of them sit in a dungeon. They don't have anybody to talk to. So it's nice to see that you guys have that now for you guys. It's really cool to see where things start and where they're going now. And that's going to help, especially with you being a training officer. You can pass these along to the new generation coming in there, and that's a big help.
Absolutely.
Right. We talked earlier, they go through the exact same things we go through. That adrenaline, the cortisol, it's the same thing. The only difference is they're doing it in a room.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. They got nowhere to off gas it.
Right.
Now, we have a gym at the fire station we're encouraged to use. That's a great stress reliever.
Yes.
You can't walk away from the desk and go work out.
Right.
Maybe you need a walking desk.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I also believe that they are truly trying at our department. We have 2 treadmills that are in our dispatch center.
Awesome.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not for downtime. It, very slow, but take a call. And if you're not out of breath, it's not like you can't walk on the treadmill. So I think that they are genuinely putting effort towards that. And which I'm thankful for. It's just, like I said, it can only get better.
Right. And it's the little
definitely
steps, little bit here. Like, okay, how'd the walking affect? More people take advantage of it. You know, the healthcare costs decrease. Everybody's happier. The rapport's better.
Absolutely.
Dispatch stops being labeled as this super negative, dark place anymore because it's not. That rap of dispatch was there for a long time because it was real.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say it.
Self-employed, self-imposed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely. So hopefully support systems, new generations that are being told it's okay to feel the way you feel. Let's make you healthier and stronger from it and be frontline effective.
Absolutely.
So our department has bought into the wellness because of FST5. And the object of FST5 is to have every department buy into it. I mean, whatever we got to do to get everybody to buy in, because it's a better place over the last 3 years since we've started doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's what FST5 is for. We'll help you. We'll get you there. Just reach out.
It was definitely something new too. Like when it got brought to us, because for 3 years when I first started, it was not, we weren't included really in the group activities after a serious peer mediation.
Because somebody's got to answer the phones.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So within 3 years ago, it was almost like kind of a shock whenever an email would come out on a critical incident and your name is listed in there, like you should be there. And it's almost like, wow, I get to be included in that and actually go through and talk about what I was feeling too with that call.
Does that inclusivity in general make you just feel better? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
Rhetorical, right?
Originally, debriefs were designed to critique what you did on the scene, not for emotional support, not for mental health well-being. They were to, what could we do better as a team? We've now transformed that to, we kind of leave out the criticism and what have you. Now our debriefs are strictly about processing and mental health. And we've realized, like I said, if you're on the call, you belong there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You started it all out.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks
Listen,
a lot.
I wish sometimes we
there.
don't take the call. Didn't have to take the calls. Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, this was a great conversation.
Awesome.
You're a great representative of the dispatch community.
Thank you.
And so keep doing what you're doing. Don't be jaded. Just work out more and walk your dogs.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do in life.
And thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
You did amazing.
Thank you.
And now we welcome Manisha Leary and Christy Burris as they provide their reflections. Their combined experiences and perspectives will enrich the conversation, offering valuable takeaways and deepening the impact of what you've heard today.
I am Manisha Leary. I am program manager for Frontline Strong Together and a psychotherapist for trauma over the past 13 years. And I'm here with one of our FST5 peers, Christy.
I'm Christy Burris, and I am one of the peer trainers here with FST5. Formerly, I worked as a firefighter paramedic, and then for over 25 years, I was an emergency dispatcher. I retired from that last year, and that's when I started working here.
Okay, so this episode with Mariah and Scott was great. And so I'm so glad now that we're having this opportunity to do reflections on our episodes as well, because it gives us a chance to talk through some of the things that were talked through and kind of discuss more of it in a clinical space. So I thought it was a great interview. What were your thoughts initially?
Oh, yeah, she was wonderful. I loved the fact, she's only had 6 years in, but she seems so, I don't want to say old, but she knows what she's doing. She has got a lot of soul under her, and that was really kind of grabbed me about her. So I was really engaged by their conversation and what she had to say.
I was super impressed again by her only having 6 years in and her being so knowledgeable. It seems like being a dispatcher in the city of Warren and having such a huge call volume. So it sounds like she kind of does what all of our groups do, is kind of really get their on-job training super quick and get it there learning on the job. So that was really great.
That's pretty typical, I think, for dispatchers. And we have a much smaller, like I'm from Marquette, Michigan. We did, Marquette County. And, we had 2 people on minimum. And we also have most of the time 3 people. So it's interesting to see that their minimum is 3 and they have such a high call volume. Kind of, they need more people where they're at, because we definitely needed more people where we were at. But yeah, they on the job training is pretty typical. There is a dispatch class that everybody takes, like a first tier and a second tier, but that is there's not really a dispatch academy I mean, I'm sure there is, but in Michigan, I don't believe that we have that. And it would be something that would be beneficial. But I think, like most of these, you get most of your knowledge and experience on the job.
Yeah, so some of the things that she talks about, and this is great that we're doing this reflection with you because you have such a extensive experience and background with 911 dispatch. I thought it was interesting when she was talking about coping skills,
Mhm.
and she had mentioned that, having a good rapport with your coworkers, the ones that you're working mostly with is really great. But for her, she went from loving to spend time with her family and enjoying to spend time with her family to needing to do that, like
Mhm.
that being her anchor once she got years into the job. And so I thought that was interesting because it kind of shows that the work that you do can be heavy. And if you're spending 12 hours in a room of taking these calls, these in a city as big as Warren, and they're back to back, and you not only are absorbing all of the stress, right? You're taking it all in, going from one call to the next, and then you have to keep things going. Often there's a space where that goes home, right? Or
Yes,
could go
absolutely.
home. And if you don't have a separation there, I think it could be hard to manage that going forward. So I thought it was interesting that she said her family and going to the gym and that kind of what used to be before she started fun time became her like requirement and things that she needed to have in order to reduce her stress.
As I started doing dispatch, that wasn't one of the things that we ever talked about, or we said, hey, you need to find something that's going to keep you sane after work to not take it home. So I wasn't very good at that. And I found that I was operating in this way high level of always being ready for the worst thing to happen. And that's how I spent my life. And so when I retired, all of a sudden I'm trying to relax and I couldn't. I couldn't deal without having some kind of emergency, insane situation going on. So, and that's when I decided that therapy was a good thing to do. But I did. I run. I do spend time with my family and my friends, and that's just something you need to do right away from the beginning. Find those coping mechanisms and talk to your partners. That was probably some of the best things. As I got going later on in my career, I did realize that there was a lot of benefit in talking to your partners about the call that you just took and them talking to me, especially after I took my SISM training. So,
Yeah, actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that you always find yourself in this heightened emergency mode because Mariah mentioned that as well too. She was describing how often the team goes when you get these calls, you're just constantly in this what we typically call fight or flight mode, but
mhm.
she intentionally said fight mode. Whereas she's always heightened. This is hyperarousal of the state of needing to be on or needing to be solving some sort of emergency or handling something in a kind of fast or an emergency type way. And I found that that was interesting, especially clinically, because that type of hyperarousal can weigh heavy on your just overall character of who the person is. So you could be, talking to someone and trying to figure out, directions to a restaurant and be as hypersensitive to needing that to go smoothly as you are on a call from work, right? What happens in our minds and what happens in our bodies is that sometimes we can't separate the two. We get so into needing to operate in such a higher mind frame or state to where it's hard to separate that or kind of be rational about things that doesn't need that type
Mhm.
of intensity. And so I think knowing that or being able to recognize that is important in these type of spaces.
Absolutely. You want to be in that fight mode. You want to be where your brain is operating on what you have to do, and you have to do it well, and you have to do it in the right order, and you have to keep your responders safe. So you need to be in that when you're working, but you need to find a way to step back out of it when you do hang up that call because you got to get ready for the next one, or you got to talk to your partner, or your partner has to talk to you. You have to find a way to be able to step back and step out. You cannot take work home with you. And I think that goes for all of our disciplines.
For sure, for sure. Also, Mariah mentioned and during this interview, she was talking about a lot of the things that she does to help cope. The thing that I really loved is like she mentioned that if she needed to, she's going to talk to a coworker or she's going to talk to someone on the job in the moment. She
Mhm.
also mentioned that if she needed a follow-up, she can text someone and get that information, or she can reach out to someone if she needed to get that information, knowing that for her, she needed to have that closure in that space. I thought that was amazing because what I was hearing from her is that she's using these opportunities to get what she needs in the moment while she can still be effective at doing her job.
I completely 100% agree. And as she moves on in her career, there is a chance that she may find that she is mired down in a lot of that sadness and the horrible stuff that she's heard. And a lot of people don't understand what dispatchers have heard. And the thing she also brought up was being on that call and worried, well, everybody in the other disciplines are on one call, we're on them all. And if she finds that she gets to that, I do hope that if she finds that she's getting too sad or depressed or anxious or angry, that she does reach out to, say, FST5 or any therapist or anything like that, and spreads that word to her fellow dispatchers that it is okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to take time and find yourself again, find your soul again.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm hoping that she can keep her very positive demeanor through this job. I think dispatchers are extremely important, and we don't have many that are retiring from the work that they do anymore. So we want to make sure that that is an option for her. One of the last things that she said that I thought was really important is about making your job your life. You can't make your job your life. And I think this covers for all 5 disciplines. We have a lot of first responders whose jobs are so high in stress and kind of the things that you have to do on the job, the structure that you have to maintain on the job, and the things that you have to do really well because life or death is involved. And I think is 110% important that there is a separation or disconnection between the work that you do and who you are outside of that, and maintaining that as long as you possibly can, but ideally, throughout your career. So if you are someone who likes dispatcher and also likes photography, like that's something that is important to continue to pursue and be a part of, because that's also who you are. That's also a part of who you are. And I think sometimes we see people losing themselves in the work that first responders do.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely something that had happened to me, and I've seen it happen to others where they lose those passions and they do just become about work. So remember who you were, and you have to go back and have someone else remind you do that. I have friends that are not first responders, and I cherish them, and they don't always ask me about this call or that call. And then I have friends that are first responders, and I cherish them also. It's wonderful to be able to have somebody that you can bounce those calls off of and talk about it and share.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We hope everyone enjoyed this great episode. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.